Hi, I'm Natalie Gevinti from Unlimited Mindset Solutions, and I'm here with Paul Kennedy. Hi, Paul, how are you?
I'm well, Natalie.
Excellent. So, Paul, you have a broad corporate and entrepreneurial career. You have held C-level roles in some of the world's best-known consumer goods companies, such as Pepsi, Foster's, SC Johnson, Burger King, Hungry Jack's, and you've held marketing, sales, and executive leadership roles in Asia, Australasia, and the USA. In recent years, you have worked on a number of boards in the public, private, and non-for-profit sectors. Is that right?
Yes.
And so your passion is growth, and it's seeing companies and brands and individuals flourish, get the creativity flowing. Whilst there are many business drivers, you really see people capability and time optimization as the two most important growth levers. You were saying to me that people are critical to making it happen, and time is the one resource that we will have less of tomorrow. That's
Yes.
very wise. And so now you run a private consulting business in Melbourne, and you're always looking for new challenges. So I really thank you, really appreciate you giving us your time for this interview. You've had a fantastic career, and I cannot wait to hear all the insights that you've gained from this. I think one of the first things that I'd like to hear about is about a person who might have had a tremendous impact on you as a leader, because I've discovered through my own experience that we don't get to those roles by ourselves, and we're often inspired. So who would that have been for you?
Yes, and there's a number of people, Natalie, over the years, but I think one in particular was a chap from Pepsi called Bill Wilson, who was the overall head of Pepsi in Asia Pacific when I was working for him. And he was if you like, he almost had the complete play set of being a top executive. He was definitive, he always knew exactly what he was saying. He was demanding, he wanted performance, he wanted action. He was inspiring. He'd do that in an inspiring way where you wanted to run out there and do your best. And he was also very consistent about his decisions, and you knew pretty much where his point of view would lie before you went in there to argue something. It's not to say he wasn't flexible, but he was consistent. And I think those four components put together give you what I'd call a tough boss but great results. We very rarely get great results from soft bosses, because at the end of the day, leadership's about leading.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about leadership and leading and tough bosses, what do you think as being the most important decisions that you make as a leader of your organization today and even prior than that?
Well, I think there's two things. One is that you've got to be able to figure out who's on the team, who's going to work together. When you start building your executive team, everyone's CVs are quite the same, but finding people to get the right chemistry to work together, especially in tough situations like turnaround businesses, as when I came to Pepsi in Australia, it was a turnaround, right through to capitalising on growth and instilling passion and momentum in the organisation. So you need to be able to work out who's on the team. And that was the other part about it, is then who is on the team, it's also who's trusted, because there could be a lot of tough decisions going on, and you don't want leakages out into the general organisation before that communication is ready to be had. And once again, in tough times, there's always the Monday morning quarterbacks, as Bill Wilson used to call them, or the people who are on the sidelines providing all the coaching but doing none of the work. So I think it's really important making that judgment on who should be trusted and who's got the right values for the.
So does it mean that one of the most important decisions could be around who you hire?
Absolutely, yeah. Who you hire, and particularly how the chemistry between people is. So you can get 5-star stars there together, and we've all heard about great teams and great individuals. But if you don't get the chemistry right, then you find it's hard to get the business going.
Yes, because it is teamwork at the end of the day, isn't it?
Always teamwork.
So in the organization that you've been, what would you say was the most important? Was it the mission, the core values, or the vision?
Definitely the core values. Missions actually can change, and visions can change over time. Core values are immutable in my book. They're non-negotiable, they're immutable, and they are consistently the most important thing. You can move people from organisation to organisation, and you know how to behave if they've got great core values that are aligned with the organisations. If they haven't, then that can be a problem. And I think, as with many relationships in life, it comes down to sharing the same core values.
Yes, absolutely. So, talking about sharing the core values, how did you and other leaders in your organization communicate the core values?
Well, it's an interesting one, and thinking about that question brings me to the kind of what I call confusing answer, which says you actually show the organisation what the core values are by not doing the wrong thing, rather than by doing the right thing. Because what happens is the organisation time and time again will notice that someone's out on core values, and there'll be a rumour, someone will make some comment, a story will be told. Very rarely do you ever hear the opposite situation about this person did a great job modelling core values.
True, isn't it?
You only hear about people who are doing a bad job. So, not demonstrating the core value is as bad as trying to do a good job and not being rewarded for it. And the answer, I think, to that is that you don't do the wrong behaviours.
Yes.
Because the wrong behaviours find you out. And no matter what level you are in the organisation, if you're not demonstrating the core values, it's a problem. Conversely, demonstrating the core values doesn't often get rewarded. It's just expected. But certainly if you can take out the non-core value behaviour of the organisation, then you're probably in a much better situation.
Yeah, and maybe that's a value that can be added, which is recognizing and rewarding the right behaviour and trying to catch people doing the right thing.
It is, but I think it's also just as much for the organisation, the signals you show how you handle people who are not modelling the core values, and what the organisation does to treat that, or to discipline it, or to counsel it, or whatever the device might be. That's probably just as important as actually getting reward for showing core values.
Yes, absolutely.
People need to know what their boundaries are.
Absolutely. And so how did you ensure that your organization and its activities are aligned with the core values?
Well, that's good. And once again, I think the answer to that, and there's a certain amount of direct feedback. Yeah. I know, going back to Bill Wilson again, we often used to have many situations where he would give us some good direct feedback, or DF as he called it, and it was a part of the Pepsi culture in those days that there was no holds barred, essentially. People could say what they needed to say and get it off their mind, and the bosses would deal with it and they'd give them the direct feedback back. So I guess, you always left the situation, you never leave the room wondering what the boss was trying to tell you or what the situation was. Everything was made pretty clear. Now, a lot of people might find that quite a robust and perhaps aggressive way of handling it, but it's about clarity and it's about focus. And organisations that don't have clarity and don't focus very rarely succeed. So I find it really important that people understand these things fairly clearly, fairly quickly, and they get on and behave in the correct manner.
Absolutely. So I know earlier you mentioned 4 characteristics, from your mentor. What do you say is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
Oh, yes. Definitely focus.
Yeah.
Consistency and focus, because at the end of the day, business is about a focus. The mission has a focus to it, the vision has a focus to it, the values are bringing together to enable the organisation to have a focus to it. And a number of times I've been in various organisations, particularly in some small board situations, where the whole thing seems to change from day to day. And what I often say, strategic planning is what's for lunch today, because that's as far ahead as they're looking. So, the places, the organisations that get places have great focus, and they have great discipline behind the focus, and then they have great energy behind the focus. And once all those things start to fall into alignment, life becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun and a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And not wandering around trying to second guess what your boss or what the board or whoever is trying to get you to do. If you've got the focus, it doesn't matter, you just get on and you do it. And you've got a chance. Everyone likes to be part of a winning team. Everyone likes to have a role to play. The focus enables you to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. And what would you say, maybe through your own experience, through your own mistakes or mistakes that you've witnessed other leaders make, what would you say is one mistake that leaders make more frequently than others?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and I guess one of the ones that comes to mind, because I often see it happen, is that people sometimes, or organisations take too long to get rid of people who are not aligned with the business and the culture. And we like, as human beings, we're sociable. We like to give people the opportunity to shine. But when it's clear that the opportunity is not there and their talents are best off in another organisation or another situation, doesn't necessarily fit with ours, then that decision should be made. But I've seen many, many times where things hang on, and when they hang on, it becomes like a cancer in the organisation. It pulls the whole organisation down because everyone's wondering, well, why is this person still here? They're not doing the right thing. They're not doing the right job. And I think, once again, Bill Wilson, one of his lines was, you never regret firing anyone too soon.
Yes.
And that's maybe sound pretty tough and hard, and in some ways it is, but for the organisation's benefit, some people fit and other people don't. And as a leader, you're required to first of all, make that decision on whether they should be in the organisation, and then, if not, how they best exit it for everyone's mutual respect.
And I really like how you mentioned it's based on the fit with the culture.
Absolutely. It's based on the fit with culture and values. It doesn't matter if their performance is good or bad, because everyone can have good years, bad years. I've had some bad years on performance-wise, and then next year was a great year, so that's okay. But at least my values were consistent across those 2 years. So the organisation knows that you fit right, you're just not getting the results. So it's back to working harder, working smarter, and focusing. Always focusing.
So, the leadership scene has evolved and keeps on evolving. What do you say is the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
Well, I think besides building the right team, it is about finding a winning strategy. One thing that's happened today, and I see it in a number of different businesses, I guess I'm probably working in 4 or 5 different industries at any point in time, the internet and the digital world is just rapidly coming and changing, turning business models upside down. And what we thought we could have it was a way to make profit and money out of the value chain was one day, the next day suddenly it's gone, it's been converted across to e-world. And I think that's continually going to be a huge challenge for us going forward, is what is our digital strategy just to compete? And then within that, how do we differentiate our brands? Because right now, a small backyard can go and create a great shampoo and get it on the supermarket shelves, just like a multinational's been doing for 20 years, and there they are competing together. That wasn't possible until recently.
Yeah.
So, I think it'll continue to be how we face the digital challenge, and how we maintain our focus and build our differentiated brand.
So I wonder do you remember your first management role, the first time that you were
yes,
manager?
I do.
We always remember our first time, don't we? The reason I ask you is because I was reading that surveys reveal that managers get leadership training, after having been in their role for 9 years. When do you think managers should receive leadership training, and why?
About 9 minutes. To be serious here, once you come into an organisation, you have a whole series of expectations, and the organisation has a series of expectations of you. But it's really important that you get into the groove and learn all that stuff about what the expectations are, how they should develop as managers, how the organisation sees their role, as soon as possible. I often, and I agree with what they said about 9 years, I've often interviewed people who've had 10 years experience, and it was 1 year repeated 10 times over.
Yes.
And that's one of the problems when the organisation doesn't put weight on training. Trainings are the most powerful and the greatest leverage point you can have in your business. i.e. getting the people you currently have working smarter, faster, and focusing better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So, to finish on a positive note, what advice would you give someone going into a leadership position for the first time?
Well, one of the first things that springs to mind is the old adage we used to have in Pepsi, which was always move faster than your mistakes. But we don't actually believe that to be the case. I think what's important, though, is actually, first of all, go and own up for your mistakes or errors, or get them what I call socialised as quickly as possible, so that people, one, then understand what the issue is.
Yes.
And because everyone's going to make mistakes. I mean, if you don't make mistakes, you're not trying hard enough, and you're not pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
Doing the same old is not good enough nowadays, especially the digital world. So if you're going to be your first leadership position, don't be afraid to make a mistake. And as soon as you do, own up.
Yeah.
Socialise the learning for the rest of the organisation. and then move ahead. That way you become a touch point for other people who'll say, hey, look, this young guy here or young lady, they've gone out, they've made a couple of mistakes, that's fine.
Yeah.
In fact, it reminds me of the great Jack Welch story where when they're in the original days of the body scanners, they were just investing, GE was just investing into body scanning technology, and they'd missed the plan for 3 consecutive years, and the chief executive went up to Jack's office just before the big annual reporting time and said, I'm just giving you my resignation. And Jack said, why are you doing that? He said, well, for the 3rd year in a row, which was the 3 strikes and you're out policy, we're going to miss our plan. He said, well, what have you learned? And proceeded to take Jack very quickly through the 3 or 4 things they'd done. And Jack said, oh, that's good. Well, you better hurry up and go and do it then. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've just invested $140 million in your education. Go and make me some money. He took that back, and sure enough, things turned around in the next 12 months,
Yes.
and it became a star division. So, owning up to your mistakes sometimes and taking control of the situation gives great reassurance to the leaders in the organisation that the people are both accountable and responsible.
Yeah.
And that's a relief then, because you get the right team in place.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate your time and your insight. Very valuable.
Thank you.
Thank
Elise.
you.